Ut Ipitik, and welcome to the Constellations California Fellowship Virtual Q&A. My name is Mariana, they, ella pronouns. I'm zooming in from the traditional lands of my people, the Maya, and more specifically in Siquin High, also known by its colonial name of Santiago Atitlan, Guatemala. I am the Associate Director of Artist Leadership here at the Center for Cultural Power. I am a non-binary person of light brown skin with dark brown hair and eyes. My hair is pulled back in 2 braids, and I'm wearing mushroom earrings, clear frame glasses with a mustard colored top. Here with me today is also my colleague, Carmona.
Thank you so much, Mariana, and hello all. My name is Carmona. I am the Constellation Fellowship Program Manager. I use they, she pronouns. I am located on the lands of the Karankawan and Coahuiltecan people, colonially known as Bishop, Texas. I am a non-binary person with light brown skin and brown hair and eyes. My hair is pulled back by a hair clip and I am wearing pomegranate earrings, clear frame glasses with a cream off-white color top. And I'll pass it back over to Mariana.
Thanks, Carmona. So today, like we said, we're going to be talking about the Constellations California Fellowship. Can we go to the next slide, please? So the Constellations Fellowship is housed here at the Center for Cultural Power. It is an 18-month experience that runs from February 2023 through July 2024. Some of the eligibility we'll be talking about a little bit later, but for now, we'll focus on the fact that fellows must work and live in the zip codes in the Healthy Places Index in California. Fellows will receive a full-time salary of $80,000 per year, but that means for a total of $120,000 at the end of the 18 months. And will be eligible to receive health insurance, a 401k, and other generous benefits through the Center for Cultural Power to support the artist's livelihood and creative freedom. And the partner organizations, which will be of your choice, will also receive a grant for $50,000 to support operational costs. Next slide, please. So here's an overview about our fellowship. Fellows will be supported to work on their narrative project. They'll learn leadership skills, become part of the Constellations Network, which means you'll have access to a community of value-aligned artists and organizations. And you'll have opportunities to share learning and receive mentorship. This fellowship is part of the Constellations Culture Change Fund and Initiative, and is made possible by the California Arts Council, providing support, learning, and funding opportunities for artists, collectives, cultural strategy organizations, and communities. A couple of other things that we would like to note is that the fellowship definitely honors the creative freedom, nurturing the voice and vision of the fellows. Artists, disruptors, and culture bearers retain or can share the intellectual property on products created during their fellowship, and fellows and designated staff representative from the partner organization must attend all the virtual check-ins, meetings, events, and workshops throughout the fellowship. Next slide. So on the screen, you'll see the fellowship timeline. The application opened on November 14th. And if you're watching this video, it's past November 30th. On Friday, December 16, 2022, our application closes. And then from mid-January to early February, where you will be reviewing the applications, hosting a panel review, and the finalists will be invited for an interview and to pitch their proposals. And the fellows, which will be likely be 2 artist disruptors and at least 2 culture bears, will be notified via email if they were accepted. And then from February to early March 2023, the applicants that weren't selected will be notified by email, and there will be a public announcement for fellow and partner organizations. There will be the onboarding for the new fellows with the Center for Cultural Power, and then our cohort launches. Then until July 2024, the cohort will be engaging in a series of events, and it will culminate with showcasing their work. There'll be final reviews and interviews of the fellows, and then the fellowship ends. Next slide, please. So here is the fellow criteria. We are looking for artists, disruptors, and culture bearers who meet the following criteria. So all the fellows must be based in California, and you can see if your particular zip code, so you must live within a specific zip code from the Healthy Places Index, which we mentioned earlier, and you must live in a zip code that's within the 25th percentile. And so now we're going to take a look at the spreadsheet. You can find this link for the zip codes in our web story. And the way that you can find your zip code is if you have a Mac, you would do Command F or Control F to find, and just enter your zip code and see if it's available in this list, which means it would qualify you to be a fellow. So now we'll look at some of the other bullet points in our criteria, which of course all Californians can apply, again, based on whether you live in the 25th percentile in the Healthy Places Index. We are looking for a diversity of artistic disciplines, which include but are not limited to visual arts, literary arts, music, TV, film, performing arts, traditional arts, etc. And at least 2 of the 4 fellows chosen will be culture bearers. So another aspect of our criteria is that we're looking for artist disruptors and or culture bearers that actively center craft and cultural practice. And what that means is that you're dedicated to your artistic craft or practice, committed to racial, cultural equity and justice, and center the liberation of oppressed communities. Additionally, we're looking for collaboration, which means have experience in transformative artistic practice connected to community engagement, have experience working with partner organizations or community members to advance social impact or community benefit. Your work demonstrates community relationships. So you've worked deeply with and or come from directly impacted communities. Transmuting knowledge, which means, especially if you're applying as a culture bearer, that you have experience in transmuting ancestral knowledge or practice between generations. And lastly, narrative impact. You have experience telling stories, implementing projects, or practices that uplift community voices and shift narratives and worldviews. Next slide. So next we're going to talk about the partnership organization criteria. So what we're looking for in your partner organizations is that they should be values aligned, and they must have the following experience: that they've worked collaboratively in the state's underserved communities, that they'll work with the Californian artist disruptors and culture bearers, with the fellow, and have past collaborations that are relevant to the proposed project, and have a deep understanding of the intersections between arts and social justice. Next slide, please. So about the project. We, as part of the Constellations California Fellowship, we are looking for projects that are designed to increase the California Arts Council areas of impact. The first one is public health awareness and messages to stop the spread of COVID-19. Public awareness related to water and energy conservation, climate mitigation, and emergency preparedness, relief, and recovery. Civic engagement, including election participation. And lastly, social justice and community engagement. Next slide. In addition to the increased awareness and impact from the California Arts Council, the fellows and their partner organizations will create and implement projects and/or cultural practices in their communities that advance one or more of the core Constellation narratives, which are the following: we steward the past and the future. We are interdependent. We thrive when we care for each other. Our survival depends on balance. We determine our lives and our future. We create abundance. Our lives have inherent value and dignity. With that said, we're looking for clearly defined projects that have a focus on a target audience, are dedicated to artistic and/or cultural practice, are committed to racial equity, social justice, and community building, and include a clear partnership with an organization. Next slide.
All right, thank you so much, Mariana, for walking us through the criteria, fellowship overview, all of that. And again, please note that we will be answering all questions that are coming in at the end when we open it up for discussion. So moving into the budget template and example that we have provided here today. This is a example. Again, this is a mock-up that we have created just to kind of provide some clarity as to how you would want to fill out the budget template that we have provided for you to submit when filling out the application. So some of the instructions, you would want to include the following information, but you are free to add any categories that are relevant to your specific project. You can see our additional notes section at the bottom is where you would want to add a list of secured funding. And you'll see here, it's broken down by category of personnel, supplies, travel, and miscellaneous. And please note that we welcome, color coding to differentiate, but please don't feel the need to color code the entire thing. Just in a way that is indicative per category is completely fine. And in the additional notes section, so again, you would just want to provide a secured funding list that could include anything ranging from grants, sponsorships, and providing a quick summary of each quarter's budget. And this would just again be a quick way for us to briefly read everything that you have either in mind or already in your monetary contributions to the project. So we can go into the next slide. And here we have a timeline template example. Again, this is one that we created just to provide some clarity. And in here, you'll see that we have it broken down by activity, the proposed dates that these activities would be taking place throughout the duration of the fellowship. And again, to just in the description and note section, you are make it as detailed as you feel is necessary to explain each activity. And again, we at the top, you'll see there is a link to the example, and this entire slideshow will be provided also on our web story when the Q&A goes live. Okay, and then from there, we'll be moving into showing you an example of what a pitch deck would be. Now, the pitch deck is something that we are including in this application to answer a series of questions, all in one consolidated document. So what you will see after this slide is the example. So again, the purpose of the pitch deck is to stimulate interest, not to cover every aspect of your project necessarily. Your objective is to answer the 7 questions using a brief bullet points. And these 7 questions are the ones that are asked in the application. And the maximum number of slides that will be accepted for this pitch is 10. This low number challenges you to concentrate on the absolute essentials. So again, just consider that when planning your pitch deck submission. And we can go into the next slide, please. Okay. So this is, again, showing you the first image of the pitch deck example that could be submitted. Some of the information that you'll want to include on your title page is, the title of your narrative change project, your name as the artist and or culture bearer, also your medium and or cultural practice, the contact info of your partner organization rep, and the partner organization name. Additionally, you can include on this page briefly stating what table of contents will include. And in this part, you can feel free to add in visuals that aid in better understanding you and the project. For example, on this slide, you can include your headshot, logo, a project graphic, etc. Okay, and we can move into the next one. Thank you. So the first question of the 7 that needs to be answered in this pitch deck is, what is the narrative that you are trying to change, create, or amplify with your project and or cultural practice? For this, answering this question, you'll want to use 1 bullet point for a brief summary of your narrative change project. And then additionally, you can have in 2 to 3 bullet points your response to the question. Okay, we can go into the next one. Thank you. So the second question of the 7 is, what are your goals? And here you would want to provide a list of milestone goals and provide 2 to 3 bullet points on the value of those goals. And you'll just want to make sure that the bullet points explain the goals you will set for yourself during the fellowship. Include information about how your partner organization will assist you to achieve these goals as well. Okay, and then we can go to the next slide. So the third question is going to be, who does this work need to engage or to shift the narrative? And for this question, you'll want to provide 2 to 3 bullet points for each target audience. And when you're thinking about your audience, you want to think locally, regionally, and statewide. And please be sure to provide a sentence in your bullet points explaining your reasoning for targeting this audience. Okay. And you can go ahead to the next slide, please. Thank you. And the fourth question is going to be, how do you plan to engage those specific audiences? You'll want to provide a maximum of 5 bullet points on how you plan to engage them, and provide 1 bullet point with any data you and your partner organization may have about your current audience reach. And in your audience bullet points, please include how you will engage them throughout your project. Okay, and we can go to the next slide, please. Thank you so much. Okay, so the 5th question is, what change do you hope to see as a result of your project? For this question, you'll want to provide a 1 to 2 sentence summary of the long-term effects of your project and participation in this fellowship. You will describe the change you hope to see your project after 6 months and after 1 year and potentially beyond. Okay, we can go into the next slide, please. So the 6th question that we ask is, what is your project? In 1 bullet point, elaborate on what sources outside of your local community that you plan to collaborate with and or partner with to promote the project. The points on your distribution strategy method with some descriptive details. Some distribution examples include plans to have the exhibit shown at other galleries or spaces, bidding film projects and or screeners, and create a model for other communities to participate in practices similar to the ones that were created through your project. Okay, and we can go into the next slide, please. Okay, and for the final question we ask is, how do you plan to measure your impact and engagement of your audience and or community? What sort of data collection practices will you use to measure the engagement from and regional communities? In 2 to 3 bullet points, describe the methods previously used that have been successful in the development of your network relationships, and then list any new strategies you would like to incorporate with the Help Fellowship. Okay, and we'll go to the next slide. So this here is actually just a slide that can be added in for any other relevant info. And in here, you can use this slide to, again, add any other relevant info that is beneficial to your project. And you can explain the current status, grants you've been awarded, you provide testimonials, etc. And from there, we will be to the application questions and FAQ. So just to wrap up the pitch deck also, that was actually 10 slides as well. I want to also let you know that we have suggested in our application questions link that Canva is a tool that can be used. It is very easy to navigate. It is our recommendation to, if you have yet to have an opportunity to create a pitch deck for any of your projects, to use that tool, because it is definitely beneficial. And it is something that even I was able to use to create this sample one. So in our application questions and FAQ, these both can be found on our web story at culturalpower.com. And we have a full breakdown of every piece of information that is necessary to submitting your application for this fellowship. All right, and then we can move into the next slide, please. All right, and now is where we will be opening it up for questions. And I will go ahead alongside of Mariana, start live answering them. Okay, so I see here there is a question in the chat. What is the difference between an artist disruptor and a culture bearer? Again, too, I do want to say that this is a great question, and this is actually one that we already have listed in our FAQ. And the answer to that is culture bearers are artists, disruptors, and carriers of ancestral knowledge who weave past, present, and future stewardship of land, culture, and community and spirits. Culture bearers are not artist disruptors who connect culture bearing as a topic or theme. They hold the stories and embodied practices of our indigenous, diasporic, and migrant communities. And an artist disruptor is someone who is an artist that is rooted in community, inspires action, and is working at the intersection of art and social justice. Artist disruptors are able to powerfully manifest narratives into stories and visuals that speak directly to their audiences and communities. Okay. Okay, so the next, oh yeah, go ahead, Mariana.
I was going to go ahead. Okay. So the next question is, what if I don't live in that zip code, but the organization I work with is based in that zip code? So this person is asking regarding the Healthy Places Index, the zip codes, and it is a requirement that the artist disruptor or the culture bearer lives in the zip code within the Healthy Places Index in that bottom 25th percentile. So if the organization, it doesn't matter whether your partner organization is in that zip code or not, but ideally they are working with the communities that are within that zip code, and the zip codes listed in the Healthy Places Index.
Okay, thank you so much, Mariana. And I see the next question is, can non-citizens and non-residents apply? And again, that is a great question. We do also have that answered in our FAQ. And the answer to that is yes. We ask that any undocumented applicants provide an LLC number or an individual taxpayer identification number if they are chosen as a fellow, so they can then receive funding. Okay. All right, Mariana, you want to get the next one?
Sure. Is it okay to work with an organization I have not worked with before? Is it okay to work with an organization I have a deep connection with? Does it make a difference? I think I can answer the first part of this question, which is we would prefer that you work with an organization that you've worked with before. And Carmona, I will punt it to you.
Thank you so much. And that is correct. You definitely would want to have at least some prior work experience or collaboration with the organization. And deep connection with the organization, as long as you are not receiving a full-time salary from the organization, you are welcome to list them as your potential partner org. that means like if you do contract style jobs with the organization, that is not a deterrent from you being able to apply. It's mainly just if you are a full-time staff, that is when we would recommend not to apply with that organization, but to apply with a different one. So yeah. Okay, next question would be, do the partner organizations have to submit an application? I need to live and work in the zip codes, but does the partner organization need to be located in the zip codes or just have a long history of serving those zip codes? This is a great question. So the partner organization, I'll start with the first question, does not have to submit an application. What we are actually requesting is that you review the application question document that we have provided. And when the partner organization questions come up, which I believe it's the last 8 or so questions of the application that strictly pertain to the partner org, you want to get that information from them ahead of time and then apply all at once together. Okay. And then the next portion of that question was, I need to live. Does the partner organization need to be located in the zip codes or just have a long history? So it is a requirement that the applicant, the artist, disruptor and or culture bearer lives in the zip codes. But for the partner organization, we are recommending that they have a long history serving those zip codes. And if possible, they are also located in some of those zip codes as well. But it is not a major, like, again, deterrent for the partner org to not necessarily be from the zip code. It is necessary, though, that the fellow be living and working in the zip codes that are in that 25% quartile, though. Okay.
So I'll go ahead and read the question.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah. Is leadership skills a required program, as part of the internship, or is it more of a network observation form of leadership building? Is the mentorship a formal one-on-one configuration? If so, do we choose our own mentor?
Okay, this is great. So leadership skills, if you're referring to building them, that is something that we're incorporating into our cohort workshops and events that we plan for the fellows. And in terms of when you're thinking about leadership skills for applying, we definitely want to know that you as the applicant does have the means to lead a project from development all the way through distribution within this 18 months. So that answers that question. And then the second portion of that is about the mentorship in general. So for the cohort, it will be a group style mentorship. And then there will be some one-on-one portions with the Constellations team and myself to really help cater the needs of your project specifically, should it be chosen. And so that does then answer the question. You will not be choosing your own mentor, but we will have opportunities for different mentors to be coming in and offering guidance to the selected fellows.
The next question is the final showcase also virtual?
Great question. So we will probably have a wrap up sort of after the showcase happens, but the actual showcases we are intending for each of the selected fellows to have an in-person final showcase in their zip code. And this, again, is something that we intend to have take place during the month of July. And the way we have it set up is, again, right now, it is set to be in person.
Thanks, Carmona.
No problem.
The next question is, outside of my own project-based work, how much time do you estimate for other aspects of the internship? Leadership skills, mentorship, meetings, other sessions, networks, showcase.
Okay, this is a great question. So one, I definitely want to clarify that this fellowship is actually ultimately going to turn into like a staff position. So you will essentially be coming on as a staff fellow for 18 months. Center for Cultural Power, again, in collaboration with the California Arts Council. And again, you will be housed out of the Center for Cultural Power, working alongside of myself and my colleagues in the Constellations department and network. So to lead from what I was just saying, that then will require you to participate in at minimum 20 hours dedicated towards the creation of your narrative change project, and a maximum of 20 hours dedicated to staff required events for the Center for Cultural Power and Constellations.
Thank you. The next question is, are the core narratives like themes that our work would address in partnership with the organization? Does there need to be a specific population served defined in the application? Sorry, I haven't read the application yet.
No problem. You still have time. Luckily, there is still 2 weeks. So to answer this question, yes, essentially they're kind of like guiding narratives that are underlying themes that you would find within your project. I don't know, Mariana, would you maybe be able to provide a little bit more clarity on how weaving the CAC's areas of impact and our core narratives would be implemented?
Yeah, thanks, Carmona. So I would say definitely the constellation narratives are themes that should be centered in your work. However, for the requirements from the California Arts Council, it is expected that your work addresses one of the impact areas, or rather, at least one of the impact areas. So please make sure that your work definitely falls into one of them.
That is correct. Thank you so much, Mariana.
Great. So the next question is, does it count against us if we don't have additional sources of funding?
Not necessarily. It is not going to count against you. We would like to know if you at least have maybe some in-kind sponsorship or donation coming in as funding sources. One thing I want to note is in the budget, it is vital to include even information of work and time that is being put into it, even if it's not necessarily being paid through cash or check or credit or debit transactions, because there is still a value to that work that is being put in. So, if you've already been working on the project behind the scenes, doing some development, if you have a small team beside you, you would want to include the breakdown of, during development, I have alongside of 2 non-paid assistants have created a script for this project, or a pitch deck for a short documentary that we want to shoot. You would still need to list the value of the time if you had the money to pay those people. So that's just something to consider.
Thank you, Carmona. The next question is it okay to add photos? And I believe this is about the pitch slides that don't belong to me, but that could give a better idea of what I'm trying to do with my project.
This is a great question. This is actually something that gets used all the time for film pitch decks, creative pitch decks. Sometimes you might not have an opportunity to, build out full-blown screen mock-ups of what's happening in your scene or your project. But you do have images that are inspired or inspirations that you plan to incorporate or see similarities to your own project. Yes, you can include those photos. I would just advise, this is a general note to use this pitch deck even for later applications, should you have the opportunity, is to make a small note just at the bottom of the image that states that you are using the image purely for visual inspiration purposes, and that you are not the owner. That way it just, covers you, and also then allows the reviewer to know that this is a picture that you are using to, again, draw inspiration from.
Thanks, Carmona. So the next question is, when you mention long-term effects of our projects, how do you define long-term?
Okay, great question. So for long-term in this context, we definitely just want you to consider mostly the important one is 6 months after your project and 1 year after. Do you imagine that 6 months after the fellowship and the showcase, maybe you would like to, at that 6-month point, hold another exhibit, partnering with somebody else that's a local artist or another local collaborator. You would want to list something like that. And the long-term goals, that can be kind of broader, where it's that you hope that this engages your community to participate in art exhibits that focus on Indigenous experience, something to that nature, just bringing people more involved could be a long-term effect. So that would be 2 ways to think about that.
The next question is, for the pitch deck, will we be assessed based on our content or also on the design of content? I don't have strong technical skills on PowerPoint.
Great question. And the answer is no, you will not be based fully on the design. Again, like I mentioned, the one that we just showed you and kind of guided you through a little earlier in the presentation, it was all made through Canva, and it can be as simple as that, where it's the title and you are just answering the questions and in the bullet points like we suggested. And should you have ability to create something more aligned with your branding, that is also fine as well.
Thanks, Carmona. The next question is, could you please share any examples of extra relevant information that could strengthen applications?
Great. great question. So for some of the additional relevant info, I would say, here you could briefly list any past awards that maybe the project has been granted. I will use the example of somebody creating a film, an art film that they're using to apply to the fellowship. It would be safe to assume that applicant has likely created a script of some sort and is maybe submitting it out to festivals to get traction for and awareness for that script, to then build opportunities for funding. So in this extra relevant info section, say you have a script that has already won best short film, could include that here. Again, any relevant photos behind the scenes where maybe you've done, you can also just use this final page to include any pictures that you have that you feel will again help aid in visualizing your project for the reviewer.
Great. The next question is, can we just use Google Slides and submit them as slides?
Okay, so great question. You can definitely use Google Slides, but you will have to convert it into a PDF to submit it. For the application, it does not allow you to enter a link. So please, if you are using slides or any template editing software, be sure to save it as a PDF and then upload that PDF when you submit.
Great. We have 3 more questions left.
All right.
So, would you say this fellowship is for mid-career artists who already have a social media following and has already done assessments of their own work before? Or are emergent artists also welcome who have community craft experience and a plan for distribution and self-assessment?
Great. These are phenomenal questions. And the answer to both of them is yes, it is open to either of these type of applicants. Somebody coming in with following and strictly sort of a social media influence and have their project be chosen. That is definitely a possibility, but it is equally as much of a possibility for somebody who is an emergent artist that strictly has ties to their community and local regional areas that have established their craft and know how to distribute amongst that that would all likely have again as equal of a chance as making it.
Carmona, you cut out a little bit at the end there. Do you mind repeating that part?
Yeah, I apologize. What was the last thing you heard, if you don't mind me asking?
You were just finalizing your statement.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was basically just saying that both of these types of applicants are equally as matched in their opportunity to make it to the top. It isn't necessarily a deterrent either way. The main thing we do want to focus on though is just that you do have relationship with your community and you have a previous working relationship with your partner org.
Thank you. So the next question is, are you interested in distribution that isn't online, such as live performance or mural unveiling, etc.? Does data collection need to be surveys?
this is a great question. So yes, we are looking for, again, this is dependent on whatever the medium and or cultural practice is that the applicant is applying with. So yes, if it is live performances, mural unveilings, all of that, yes, we want to know what your plan for distribution is for this project and beyond. And for the data collection, that is something that we plan to kind of, again, cater based on each applicants and each selected fellow, because their projects might be a little different. So certain data collection methods might not need to be taken, but there will be surveys that the fellow and the partner org does have to participate in for Constellations and the Center for Cultural Power and the California Arts Council as well.
Great, and we're at our last question. How will the payment timeline work? Will I get paid in installments or the full amount each year?
Great question. So the way we are awarding the funds is the 50K will be paid to the partner organization out in one general operating support grant. And then for the fellow, because the fellow is coming on as staff, they will then be paid as staff and receive is it bi-monthly, or it's not bi-monthly, it's I forget the exact term,
2
Mariana.
times a month.
Yes, thank you. So I apologize, you said 3 times a month?
2.
2 times, yes, you will be paid 2 times a month. And it is, again, 80,000 for the year before tax, and then at the end of the fellowship, at the end of the 18 months, you will have received 120K pre-tax again.
Great, thank you for answering all those questions, Carmona. That was it for our questions today.
All right. Thank you so much.
So thank you so much for joining us today in this virtual question and answer session for the California Constellations. We encourage you all to apply. So please take your time to look at the application as soon as you can. And we look forward to reading your submissions. Take care, everyone.